Welcome everyone to Daf Yomi 1 week at a time, Masechet Avodah Zarah, and this week is our third class, and today we are going to be reviewing Daf 15 through 21. So I just want to apologize for the quick change in the day and time of our class. So if anybody was unable to come, and if you do have any questions, and this goes for any time we have a recorded class, if anybody ever has any questions, feel free to email me with any questions that you might have. I love getting emails from people who are listening to our shiur, and Baruch Hashem, I get emails from all over the world. So I really encourage anybody, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Okay, Daf 15, we're actually going to start at the Mishnah on Daf 14. The Mishnah tells us that in a place where the people sell sheep and goats to idolaters, so then you can sell those sheep and goats, but if not, then you're not allowed to, meaning we're going to see that sometimes these laws are based on the minhag hamakom, the custom of that local area. However, you can never sell large animals to idolaters. You also can't sell calves, meaning baby large animals, and you can't even sell a large animal that is maimed, because you might think that that is okay because they wouldn't use it for a sacrifice, though another opinion is that you can sell an animal that is maimed. There's also an opinion that says that you can sell horses to them as well. So now the Gemara at the bottom of Daf 14 explains that, again, as I mentioned, that this implies that it's only based on custom and it's not an actual prohibition. And therefore, it's based on the local custom, depending on where you're living. That is what the law is. Now, and there's a braita that says that you can't put your animal in a stable of an idolater because we're concerned that the idolater will perform bestiality with this animal. Now, again, as we mentioned in the introduction to this Masechet, that there's a concept, again in Hebrew, it's lifnei iver lo titen michshol. We do not want to cause anybody to sin. And that is also including non-Jews, meaning bestiality is a problem for non-Jews as well. Therefore, we don't want to even entice them. Therefore, we shouldn't put our animals in their stables. But the Gemara says this is based on the place, meaning if it's a place where the people are suspected of bestiality, so then you can't. But if it's a place that they're not, then you can. Daf 15 tells us, no, even in a place where they are suspected of bestiality, you can sell them sheep because they will only do bestiality to somebody else's animal, but not to their own. Apparently, it sterilizes the animal, and therefore they wouldn't do it to their own animal, and therefore you can sell them sheep or goats. However, with large animals, the issue isn't bestiality. The issue is that we're afraid that they're going to do work with that animal. Again, don't forget, an ox is a modern, right, an ancient plow or tractor. So we're afraid that they're going to work with the animal on Shabbat, and we make a gzeira. Gzeira means a decree that we do, maybe the Jew, right? We say that you're not allowed to sell a large animal to an idolater, because if we do, then maybe a Jew will rent out or lend his own animal, and that animal actually has to rest on Shabbat. Right? We have there is a prohibition that you must let your animals rest on Shabbat. So if you rent it out to a non-Jew, that would be problematic. Or the other issue is that maybe we're afraid that they will, if you're selling the animal, that they're going to say, okay, you say this is a good plower. I want to see you plow with this animal, and it's going to be Erev Shabbat, right before Shabbat, and we're afraid that again it's going to work on Shabbat before you actually sold it, and therefore that would be problematic. If you rent a house to a idolater, there's a problem because we're concerned that they're going to bring idols into the house. And then the question is, who owns the house, right? And we actually have this nowadays, right? When you rent a house, is it seen as yours, or is it seen as it's the owner's and you have permission to use it, right? And the halacha is actually that it's the owner of the house that owns, that is seen as the owner and not the renter. Okay, a person can sell a donkey to an idolater through a broker who is Jewish, because again, it's not going to, if it's going through a broker, then it won't respond to the broker's voice when he calls it, and therefore it's not going to work on Shabbat while it is still owned by the Jews. Rav Huna actually sold a cow to an idolater. The question is, how could he do this if we say that you're not allowed to? So we say because you can assume that he bought the animal to eat it. If he's buying it to eat it, then that's not a problem. Right? Maybe the issue is that maybe the case is that he sold it to a butcher, and as long as he sells it to a butcher, you know that he's selling it for meat. So then there is no issue of it working on Shabbat. Beit Hillel actually allows selling a plowing cow during Shemitah. Again, on the Shemitah year, we are not allowed to work the land, but you can sell a plowing cow during Shemitah because I don't know if you're going to slaughter it or you're going to use it to work. So as long as there's the ability to say that maybe he will eat it, so then you can sell it. You can also even sell a field during Shemitah, because again, I don't know that you're going to work it. Maybe you're just going to buy it. I imagine land is very cheap during Shemitah, but you're not allowed to sell plowing tools on Shemitah, right? There's no other use for those tools, right? The Gemara says the rule is that whenever you can assume that there is a leniency, meaning, oh, maybe he just bought it for meat, so then it's okay. And then there are cases of different rabbis who sold animals to Jews who then were suspected of selling it to an idolater, but it was still okay. Now the Gemara talks about the Kutim, right? Till now we were talking about non-Jews who are idol worshippers. Now the Gemara says some people have a custom to sell small animals to the Kutim, right? The Kutim were a group of people that lived in the Shomron. They were actually brought in by Shalmaneser, and they were not Jewish, but they were attacked by lions in Israel, and therefore, out of fear, they converted. And there's a big machloket in all of the Talmud, whether we see them as Jewish or not Jewish. Sometimes it's based on the law that we're talking about, right? So here the Gemara asks, can you sell these small animals to the Kutim? So in some areas, they say yes, and in other areas they say no. The Gemara says no, the Kutim were not suspected of bestiality, so you could maybe sell these animals to them, but you're not allowed to sell weapons to idolaters or to the Kutim, because we're concerned that maybe the Kuti will sell the weapons to the idolaters. I just realized that Kuti sounded like Hutim, which is very funny. I mean, not funny, but interesting. Okay. You also cannot sell weapons to robbers who are Jewish, because if we know that they're going to use these weapons, that is problematic. There's a machloket if you can sell shields to an idolater. Daf 16 says that what's an issue with shields? One is maybe we don't want them to protect themselves. The other is that maybe, right, if they lose their weapons, they can actually use the shield as a weapon. And the law is that you can sell them shields, but you're not allowed to sell them weapons. You also can't sell them iron because maybe they will make weapons out of it. Now, going back to what we said in the beginning, you can sell a maimed animal to an idolater because we assume that they're going to eat it right away. Another option as well, maybe they'll mate it, right? They'll have more offspring from it. And the Gemara says, no, actually, if it's a female that's maimed, she's actually not going to get pregnant. And therefore, that is not an issue. Ben Betera allows selling a horse to the idolater because it's only used for riding. Others say, no, you cannot because it's actually used for war. And again, that would be problematic because it's used to kill people, maybe trample them, and then it would be problematic. What about an ox that was fattened up, right? It's not fit for working. So maybe, right, if it loses weight, it could work. Or we say, no, right, its meat is, it's meant for eating, and therefore you can sell it, or maybe you still cannot sell it. Okay, the next Mishnah on Daf 16 says that you can't sell the idolaters bears or lions or any dangerous animal or thing. You cannot build a basilica, a court, or a stadium, or a platform with the non-Jews. These places were generally places that they put Jews to death, or they were used to worship idols, and therefore it is problematic. You can build altars and bathhouses for them, but when you get to the place where they're going to put the idol, so then you should stop building. But the building itself, you can build. Okay, so now the Gemara explains that there's a machloket if large, undomesticated animals are treated like small domesticated animals, right? The term in the Gemara is behima, means a domesticated animal. Chaya means not domesticated. So the question is, are these bears and lions seen as a small behima and therefore you can sell them, or like a large behima and you cannot sell them, right? Again, you can't sell them anything dangerous, but the implication is that if it is not dangerous, maybe you can sell it to them, right? So if you have a buffalo or a moose, right, something that is not going to be too dangerous, then maybe you can sell it to them. You might even be able to sell a maimed lion, right? Because again, because it's maimed, then it is not dangerous. Or no, you could never sell any of these large undomesticated or wild animals. Okay, then the Gemara says, going to this basilica, that there are three types of basilica, these large structures. There's one of idolaters, one of kings, bathhouses, and storehouses. So, one is of idolater kings, bathhouses, and storehouses. So the last two are okay, but the first one is not okay. Or actually, you can build all three of them. What about the courts? So we said it's forbidden to build a court. So there's a story about Rabbi Eliezer that was brought to court and accused of heresy. Now, heresy here means, for the Romans, it means that he was teaching Torah, or another option is that they tried to get him to worship an idol and he didn't. Rabbi Eliezer said that he trusted in the judge. Now he meant the ultimate judge, which is God, but the judge thought he meant him. And therefore he thought he was agreeing with him. and he was acquitted, but he was unconsoled when he got home because he felt that he was punished for something, meaning we're going to see in the next few dapim that when there's a discussion about being arrested, the Gemara seems to imply either because of the person, it's not that the Gemara is saying it, but it seems that the person who was arrested seems to be concerned that they were arrested for a reason, that it was a punishment for something that they did. So Daf 17, Rabbi Akiva asked him, did you ever accept any heresy? Did anybody ever say something to you that could be seen as heretical, and that's why you were arrested for heresy? So he said that once a heretic asked him a question and he didn't have an answer, and the heretic gave him a good answer and it seemed correct. So because he accepted this heresy, he felt that he was punished. Now, it's just very important for me to just say right now, it's that the time of the Mishnah and the Gemara, there is huge tension between the Romans, the non-Jews of the time, and the Jews. There is anti-Semitism, there's hatred, there's persecution. So that's just very important when we talk about heresy and, accepting heresy, right? This is not just, reading something that somebody says. This is actually, one could say like accepting something from the enemy. So I think it's just important to put this into context. I'm not sure that it is exactly mirrored for nowadays. So I just think it's important to understand that we're dealing with a very difficult time in Jewish history, and therefore the rabbis are trying to create as much distance as possible. And we'll see how things are actually really bad. Right? And the Gemara basically says that we have to distance ourselves from heresy and from corrupt rulers and from harlots. And from here, we're going to have numerous stories about the dangers of all of these things. Right? It says that people who convert to idolatry, again, don't forget, paganism was rampant and very intriguing, exciting. So again, the rabbis are trying to create as big a barrier as possible because it was very enticing. So the Gemara says that people who convert to idolatry usually don't repent, right? Because they love it so much, they're not coming back. And if they do, the Gemara says that they actually die early. That seems counterintuitive. If they repent, they die early. So the Gemara says, well, it's because as soon as they repent, God takes them so that they can't later on regret that they repented and go back to their evil ways. So again, it's very interesting to think about the psychology of what the Gemara is talking about here. Right? There's a story of a woman who does tshuva, who repents for incest, but not idolatry, and therefore she didn't die young, or maybe she did do tshuva for idolatry and then she did die young. There's a story of, there's a pretty famous story of Rabbi Elazar ben Jordaya, who the Gemara says, again, don't get offended, but the Gemara says that he actually slept with every prostitute that he could find, and he heard about this very special harlot who lived far away and was very expensive, so he took money and he traveled very far, and when he was with her, it says that she released air. One opinion is that she burped, maybe she passed gas, but she does something and it kind of like, ruins the moment, as they would say. And she says, just like the air can't come back, so too you can never repent. And in that moment, he realized, oh my gosh, what am I doing? And he gets so upset that he runs basically to every part of nature and asks them to pray for him, to the mountains, to the stars, to the moon, right? And each one of these things they say, we don't have time to pray for you. We have to daven for ourselves. Right? So basically, you have to do tshuva. Don't ask us, right? And he realizes, right, in Hebrew, it says, Ein hadavar talui ela bi, right? He realizes that the only person who could do tshuva is himself, right? He's the only one who can do tshuva, and he cried and cried till he actually dies, and a divine voice comes out and invites him into the next world, showing that the tshuva was accepted. Okay, and here, if you remember, we had this statement last week. We're going to have it twice today, where Rebbe says when he heard the story that, right, a person can koneh olamo b'sha'a achat. A person can acquire his portion in the next world in one moment, right? And I think what the Gemara is trying to say, here is a person who was immoral for many, many years. One could say that that is beyond repentance. And the Gemara is saying, no, even in the final moments of his life, he repented and he went to the next world. So I think it's a very powerful message. More about the pull or the desire for immorality. So we have a story of two sages who are walking on the road, and they get to a fork in the road. One road goes to a temple of idols, and the other one passes by a brothel, right? And each one wants to go the other way because they felt that they could control their desire, right? Each one thought that they can control one of those desires. They end up going the way of the brothel, and they end up controlling their desires. And it says that the Torah watched over them, right? The Torah that they learned guarded them from this very exciting pull of the brothel. From here, we're going to talk about again, talking about persecution. We have the story of Rabbi Chananya ben Tradyon and Rabbi Elazar ben Parta that were arrested by the Romans. And Rabbi Elazar says to Rabbi Chananya, wow, you are so lucky that you were only arrested on one count, right? Meaning you taught Torah, and that's the thing that you were arrested for, right? And he says, but me, I was arrested for 5 things. So like, I'm in really big trouble. And Rabbi Chananya says back to him, but wait a minute, you're going to be saved, and I'm not going to be saved. Why? Because I was arrested for learning Torah, but you were arrested for learning Torah and doing acts of kindness, doing gmilut chasadim, and doing both of those things are going to save you, whereas just teaching Torah is not enough to save me. And the Gemara says, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. That Rabbi Chananya ben Tradyon didn't do acts of kindness. How could that be? So the Gemara says, you're right. He did do acts of kindness, but he felt he could have done more, and therefore he didn't have enough merit. So what were the 5 things that Rabbi Elazar was convicted of? He was convicted of robbery and learning Torah. And he says, wait a minute, you think that if I learn Torah, I could be a robber? You should just know, right? And there's a famous Aramaic line, I saifa lo safra, right? It can't be that you can't be a robber and learn Torah, right? Either you learn Torah or you're a robber. So therefore, it can't be that I was a robber, right? I definitely learned Torah, but I'm not a robber, right? I didn't do what you accused me of. The next thing they accuse him of is getting smicha. If you remember, we had the story last week that it was illegal to get divine rabbinic ordination. Again, not ordination like we have nowadays. This was something that was very serious. They said, you're called Rebbe Elazar. So Rebbe means means rabbi, so you must have ordination. He said, no. Rebbe just means master, but I'm a master weaver, not a master of Torah. So they actually say, okay, yeah, you're a master weaver. We want to check it. So they test him, and miraculously, he passes the test. And then they accuse him of not going to this gathering of idolatry. And he's like, oh, no, it's not that I didn't want to go, but I'm too old and it was very dangerous. And that's why I didn't go. And the fifth thing is that he was accused of freeing his slave. And then again, a miracle came, and he was acquitted from the charges. Next, we get to Rabbi Chananya ben Tradyon. They say again he was learning Torah, and they say, why were you learning Torah? He says, because God told me to learn Torah. Daf 18, he was actually sentenced to be burnt. The Gemara says that he deserved to be burnt. Again, remember, as I said, there seems to be the Gemara is trying to find a correlation between the persecution and their acts, meaning that it's not, it's not meaningless. So the Gemara says that why did he deserve to get punished? Because he actually pronounced God's name the way it was pronounced in the temple, and this was something that was not allowed to be done in public, and he did it in public. Not only was he sentenced to death, but his wife was sentenced to death because she had the ability to stop him from doing what he was doing, and she didn't. And here the Gemara says that we have to realize that when we have the ability to stop someone from sinning, and we don't use that power, then there is a fault in that. His daughter was sent to be a prostitute, also as punishment. The Gemara says because one day she was walking by the Romans, and they noticed how beautiful she was, and she actually slowed down so they could enjoy her beauty. And because of that, she was actually sent to be a prostitute. And when Rabbi Chananya ben Tradyon was asked why he continues to learn and teach Torah, when he knew that the punishment was death, he responded, Min hashamayim yirachamu, may God have mercy, basically on me. So Rabbi Yossi said, they're going to burn you with the Torah. So Rabbi Chananya was concerned about his portion in the next world. And and he was concerned that maybe he didn't merit a portion, but he did. And basically, again, the Romans came and they saw Rabbi Chananya teaching Torah. They took him, and this is a famous story of, we actually read this on Yom Kippur, what's called the Asara Harugei Malchut. There were 10 rabbis who were tortured and put to death by the Romans. So this is one of the stories of Rabbi Chananya ben Tradyon. They wrap him in a Sefer Torah, and they set him on fire, and they put wool that was soaked in water around his heart to prolong his death. But he was so happy that he was with his Torah when he was being killed. And the students ask him, Rebbe, what do you see? And this is a very famous line. He says, I see the letters flying up to heaven. Again, you can imagine the imagery of the Torah surrounding him, and the letters are flying up, They're going back to God. And he refused to quicken his death because he said, God is going to do what he's going to do. The executioner who is there offered to quicken the death if he could get a portion in the next world. So Rabbi Chananya said, yes, if you can quicken my death, then you will get a portion in the next world. And he actually quickens his death. And not only that, but the executioner jumps into the fire as well. And again, they are both are given a portion in the next world. And again, Rebbe says here, right, that yesh shekone olam haba berega echad, right? This is another case where a person can acquire their portion in the next world, right, in one moment, right, with one action, which is meant to, I think, inspire us. Okay, let's go to the story of the daughter of Rabbi. So Huria, right, the very famous wife of Rabbi Meir, she was actually the daughter of Rabbi Chananya ben Tradyon, and she asks, right, so basically it's her sister that is taken to the brothel. So she asks Rabbi Meir to go and find and get her, and he goes and sure that she is still virtuous, which she is, and basically Rabbi Meir saves her from the guard and from the brothel. Okay, let's go back to the Mishnah. It says that you are that if you go to the Roman stadium or to the circus or to see a snake charmer, this is what's called moshav leitzim. Moshav leitzim literally means sitting with, jesters, right? People who waste their time, right? Another word is like batlanim, right? People who basically sit around and don't do anything. They're very lighthearted. This leads to what's called bitul Torah, right? Bitul Torah, right? A wasting of time that you could be studying. The Gemara says, but wait a minute, there is an opinion that you can go to the stadium because maybe you can save a person who is going to be killed at the stadium. As long as, again, it's not you're not part of this group that's there to be entertained. Or maybe you can't go to the circuses because over there they would raise money for their idols. Okay, now since we talked about this concept of moshav leitzim, the Gemara now is going to extrapolate. It's going to talk about Tehillim, Psalms, the first chapter, because it starts with Ashrei Ha'ish, right? Right, happy is the man who does not sit with these time wasters, right, with these leitzim, right? So it says, why? Because if you go to them, if you go there, you'll end up standing with them. And if you end up standing with them, you're going to sit with them. And then you're going to become like them. Again, I think just psychologically, very powerful idea of, as my mother always says, you have to choose the right friends, right? You have to recognize that we're very influenced by our surroundings. So don't think that you can surround yourself by evil people and think that you're going to be immune. Okay, right? Again, it is not good to be surrounded by these people. Rather, you should be learning Torah day and night. Daf 19. Continues with more verses from Tehillim. Ashrei ha'ish shelo halach be'etzat risha'im. Right, happy is the person who doesn't go with the counsel of evil people. The Gemara says this is talking about Abraham, who didn't follow the people who built the Tower of Babel, and he didn't follow the people of Sodom, right? And he didn't sit with the Plishtim, right? There were evil people around him, and Abraham, right, very uniquely was an independent thinker, right? And he, right, is the father, as we know, of monotheism in a very unique time where that was not what people were doing. He was not influenced by the people around him. Ashrei, right, the psalm continues, right, praiseworthy is the person who does tshuva when they're young and doesn't wait till they're old, right? I think that this is maybe the other side of the coin of what we said before, right? You can do tshuva in the last moment, but really you should do tshuva earlier, right? Don't wait till that last moment, right? Or it means praiseworthy is a person who overcomes his desire. Right? You should enjoy doing mitzvot and not do it for the reward. And a person is successful in their learning. A person will be successful in their learning if you're learning the things that you want to learn, right? Which I think, again, very powerful, right? We all know that when we enjoy the subject, it is much easier to concentrate. It's much easier to learn. So this is based on, again, the verse in Tehillim, or maybe it's talking about God taking care of our needs if we learn Torah. The Torah is first called God's Torah, Torat Hashem, but later it's called Torato, your Torah, right? So the idea is that first you learn from a teacher, right? And then it becomes your Torah, right? It's not just that, right? You need, I think, both of these ideas. One is that Torah is a transmission. It's transmitted from a teacher to a student, but once the student learns, it becomes their own Torah, right? And then they can pass that Torah on to other people. Right? Then the Gemara brings all of these contradictory verses, right? It says, let's say, the Torah sits on wings or the Torah sits on a chair. So the Gemara says, is it a chair or is it wings? So, right, is it in a cistern or is it flowing, right? So the Gemara talks about, like, first it's like this and then it becomes like this, right? And it's a progression. The Gemara says that we should learn Torah slowly. Maybe that's a little bit against this year, which is learning fast, but okay, maybe do it on a slower speed, right? But the idea is the slower or the smaller bite-sized pieces that you learn, the more you can retain. So sorry if you can't retain this. Actually got a beautiful email from one of the students who listens to the shiur, and she said that she is learning this shiur and she tries, she doesn't retain everything, but she feels that her daily commitment to learning is strengthening her Torah learning. So Be'ezrat Hashem, that should be for all of us. Tehillim continues and says that you should be like a tree, ke'etz shatul al palgei mayim, right? You should be like a tree that is planted on the stream. So the Gemara's actually, I use the word planted, but shatul, the implication is that it actually grew somewhere else, and then it was uprooted and planted, right, transplanted here. As opposed to natua means planted here, right? And the Gemara basically says that when we learn Torah, it is important to learn from many different teachers so that you hear different voices. And then the Gemara actually says, first of all, if you're learning the basic text of the Torah, that should be from one teacher so that you don't get any contradictory ideas. But afterwards, once you learn the basics, when you learn about how to dissect the Torah or delve deeper, that is better when you learn from different people so you get different perspectives on the Torah. What does it mean, al palgei mayim? So again, it literally means like on a stream, but palgei means it's like divided. So from here, the Gemara says that you should divide your time in your learning. A third of your years should be learning the Tanakh, a third Mishnah, and a third Gemara. Or, right, since we don't know how long we're going to live, it should be days of the week, right? 2, 2, 2, and then Shabbat, I guess you rest or you review. Or maybe it's your day, a third of your day should have all these different parts. And right, again, if you set time to learn Torah every day, so then you will be successful. And I think that's really, if I can just say, that's really what Yomi is all about, right? It's literally this line in the Gemara on Daf 19, right? This idea of setting aside a time every day to learn Torah, that will bring us success. It could mean success in our Torah learning, in our success to commitment to God, getting closer to God. how, success in being a better person. But this is, I think, a very powerful message. Okay, the Gemara continues. The verse continues that the leaves won't wither from this tree. It says leaves. What does that mean? That even the leaves, right? You think, right, from a fruit tree, the fruit is the most important, but even the leaves, which is less important, those are not going to wither. What does that mean? That even the regular conversations of rabbis should be like, emulated, because even their mundane conversations have spirituality to them. Okay, then it says, Mi ha'ish hachafetz chayim, right? Who, again, in Tehillim, it says, who is the man who desires to live? What should you do? You should guard your tongue from evil, right? You should not speak evil. But not only that, right? You might think, okay, great, so I'll take a nap and then I'm amazing. So Gemara says, no, right? Right? All of these lines are very famous, right? The pasuk says, sur mira ve'aseh tov, right? You should stay away from evil, bad, but that's not enough. You also have to do tov. And that's really what life is all about. Okay, back to our Mishnah. If a person built the dome of the bathhouse, remember we said that you should not build the area where they put the idol, but if the person does, they can get paid for it, even though it's something that will be used for idolatry. Right? Even if he actually built an idol for a non-Jew, you could get paid. It's only forbidden once that idol was served, right? Once they worship it, then it is problematic. Okay, the next Mishnah says that you cannot make jewelry for idolaters, right? Rings, bracelets, nose rings, or if you're getting paid for it, right? If you did and you got paid, so then you can keep that money. You also can't sell things that are attached to the ground to the idolaters. But if you detach it, then you can sell it. Or you can sell it if it's attached, but as long as you're planning to detach it. So the Gemara explains on Daf 20, the pasuk says, lo techanem. So the question is, what does that mean? We shouldn't techanem. So one opinion is from the word chanaya. In modern Hebrew, it means like a parking lot, right? Parking. You shouldn't give them a spot in the land, meaning don't give them a portion of the land, like an encampment in the land. Or another explanation is don't give them chen. Chen, right? Lo techanem. Chen means like a compliment. You shouldn't compliment an idolater. Or it means matnat chinam. You shouldn't give them a gift. Or maybe it means all three of these things. So now the Gemara says it's actually machloket if you can give them a gift. So the Torah says that you can give a nevela. Nevela is a dead animal that wasn't slaughtered. It just died or hit by a car or was shot, right? So we can't eat it as Jews. So you can give this animal to a ger toshav. Ger toshav is a non-Jew who lives in your community, or you can sell it to an idolater, or you can sell it to the ger toshav, and you can give it to the idolater. That's one opinion. Another opinion is that you can only give it to the ger toshav, or you can sell it to the idolater, right? Or it's better to give it to the ger toshav rather than to sell it to the idolater. Right? Again, we said you can't compliment an idolater, even though some people, right, make a blessing when they see someone beautiful. So they say that's okay because you're thanking God. You're not complimenting the person. You're thanking God for creating this beautiful thing or person. Okay. here the Gemara mentions the angel of death. So it says that the angel of death is actually called full of eyes, and the Gemara actually describes how the angel of death poisons a person, and then that person dies. Okay. It says also, "V'nishmartem mikol davar ra." You have to guard yourself from any evil thing or terrible thing. So what do we learn from this pasuk? That if you have immoral thoughts during the day, it will lead to impurity at night, right? This is specifically talking about men and having a seminal emission at night. So the concept is that they have to avert their eyes from seeing anything inappropriate during the day, lest it lead to wasting seed at night. Okay, the next line in the Gemara, again, is very, very famous. It's about the levels of human potential. And this is, if you've heard of the book Mesilat Yesharim or Mesilas Yesharim, it is a book of Musar, which is about personal growth. And the book is based on this line on Daf 20. Right here, it says that if you learn Torah, it will lead to zihirut. I'll say the word in Hebrew and then I'll translate it. So zihirut, which means that like heedfulness, that you're mindful of things, which will lead to zrizut, which means diligence, which leads to nikiyut, which means cleanliness, but it means from sin, which leads to prishut, which is asceticism, meaning that you even separate from things that are permissible, which leads to tahara, which is purity, which leads to chasidut, which is piety, which leads to anava, which is humility, which leads to yirat chet, fear of sin, which leads to kedusha, holiness, which leads to Ruach HaKodesh, right, having divine inspiration, which leads to Tchiyat HaMetim, the resurrection of the dead, right? And the idea is that we have to constantly be working on ourselves to elevate ourselves to all of these levels. So another opinion is that Hasidut is the greatest or highest, right? The idea, right? And that's why we call pious people, right? Hasidim, right? Or the highest level is humility, right? Anava. So again, all of these things are very important. Okay, back to selling to non-Jews. You can sell them a tree on the condition that they'll cut it down, or as we said, maybe you have to cut it down already. Okay, the next Mishnah tells us that you are not allowed to rent a house or field to an idolater in Israel. And in Syria, which is like Syria, like next to Israel, which was conquered by David, so it has some holiness, but not exactly like Israel. So it's a lower level. So you can rent houses there, but not the fields. And Daf 21, in outside of Israel, you can sell houses and rent fields to the idolaters. That's one opinion. Another opinion is that you can rent houses, but not fields in Israel. In Syria, you can sell houses and rent fields. In outside of Israel, you can sell both houses and fields. And about renting, when we're talking about renting, it isn't about living, because if he lives there, he's going to bring his idol. So rather, when we're talking about renting a house, it's only for storage. And you also cannot rent your bathhouse to an idolater. So now the Gemara explains what is the issue, right? A field actually has a double prohibition. Again, one because of lo techanem, like we said before, but also because you are preventing the land to take, we're not going to take masrot from the land. And we're more stringent with Syria because it's very close to Israel. So therefore, it's a little bit more stringent than outside of Israel. right? The land is always going to be more stringent than houses. Okay. Also, you shouldn't make a neighborhood of non-Jews, right, idolaters, near the Jews, because again, we're concerned that it's going to be dangerous for the Jews. We said you can't rent a bathhouse to the non-Jews because he will do work there on Shabbat, and everybody knows that this is owned by the Jew. You can rent it to a kuti, even though they're going to work on Chol HaMoed, because we also sometimes work on Chol HaMoed, so that is okay. You can rent a field to an idolater because people will assume that he's a sharecropper, and therefore they'll assume that he's doing work for himself, and therefore it is okay, but not for the bathhouse, because there's no such thing as sharecropping a bathhouse. You cannot rent a field to a kuti because he is going to work on Chol HaMoed, but you can to the non-Jew because again we'll assume that he is a sharecropper, or because we're going to tell him not to work on Shabbat. This is fascinating. The Gemara says at the top of Daf 22. You can sell it to a non-Jew because you can tell the non-Jew not to work on Shabbat and he's going to listen to you, but the kuti is not going to listen to you because he thinks that he knows better, which I think is fascinating. And with that, we are going to finish for today. I see we have a few minutes. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to take questions. And Be'ezrat Hashem, we will pick it up again next week at our regular time on Wednesday at 9 p.m. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, seems to be very quiet. So I wish everybody a wonderful week and a Shabbat Shalom, and see you next week.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Tamara.
Bye. Thank you.